Good morning, and welcome to another Seize the Day. Trust you guys are waking up and feeling refreshed and ready to begin this new day. Today is Friday, December the 19th. Can you just think, it's like 6 days and Christmas is here. Can't believe it. Time just goes by. It just is, it's just amazing. So trust you guys are feeling refreshed, ready to begin this new day. We are in the midst of a study on a study called Mary's Voice. It's an Advent series, and we are currently in week 3 of this series. And we've been taking a look at the passages in Luke chapter 1 from about verse 39 and 55. It's also known as the Magnificat. It is the Latin for the word glorify that is found in the opening verses in Mary's song, where she says, "My soul glorifies the Lord." So that's where the Latin term, the Magnificat, comes from. And this is her song. It's a response to what God has been doing in her life. If you want some of the sermons of many of the pastors have been preaching on this weekend, and you can find them on BethanyChurch.com. Also, you can find all the times for our Christmas Eve services. We have a special 3 o'clock service at our Greenland campus and at Raymond for children. And it's more of a family-friendly service. And then we have a service at 5 and at 8. And so we picked, pray that you pick one of those, you come. It's going to be a really great time of celebration. You know, whenever you have the family of God that just comes together to worship, it's just a sense that the Spirit of God is there. So look forward very much to you participating. But getting back to this series in Mary's song, we started out recognizing that there was all this really note of joy that you find in Mary as she's writing, and it's in this setting where there's so much that remains unknown, so much mystery. There is this event in Mary's life is going to impact it throughout her entire life. She has no idea, just like you and I. We look at the future, and we have our guesses, but we don't. You can't really, see what is coming, how events are going to take place, and so for Mary, she's in that same spot, but she has just been given a word of revelation, and she is physically experiencing this miraculous sign. And yet, with all of those questions, you see that it's about Mary as a worshiper. My soul, glorifies the Lord. He says, right? It says, she says again that she rejoices in God, my Savior. There is Mary, the worshiper, Mary, the person, and so we went on from this to take a look at all the great reversals that we find in this passage, and it really has been an eye-opening passage to take a look at. Right? She starts off by acknowledging that God, His mercy extends to those who fear Him from generation to generation, and we talk about the grace of God in extending mercy, and that mercy brings with it forgiveness of sin, It's also our redemption. It's how God is buying us back. And it says that he has done that through the sacrifice of his son. Ephesians in chapter 1, it says we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins in accordance with the riches of God's grace. That's a passage that you find in Ephesians chapter 1, verse 7. Mary goes on to say in verse 51, she says, he has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. And in this, we had an opportunity to see how God, in extending this mighty arm, how he brings those who are proud, he brings them low. And we looked at Numbers chapter 11, and we took an Old Testament look at examples, and 1 Corinthians 10 that gave us an insight into, how God uses Old Testament history. Well, today I want us to finish looking at Mary's song, and to do so, I want you to look again with me to Luke chapter 1, and let's pick it up here at we'll read here where it says, he has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty. Let's just focus in on verse 52 here for a moment. He says he has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. See, this is, I call this the great reversals, right? Because what Mary is showing here, when she says he has done mighty things for me, right? That he has been mindful of my humble state. She's saying that God has not only entered into her life, that he knows about her, right? And that his favor is resting on her. But now she's saying, but he hasn't just done great things for me. And now she starts to reflect on a history of how God has dealt with his people. And it shows again that Mary is very familiar with the word of God, that Mary is also very familiar with the stories that are told. And so as a worshiper, she turns around and she just reiterates again what God has done in the past. And here's the thing. What God has done in the past is the foundation on which I can build my life on with a sense of confidence and purpose. Because if he did it then, God says he's going to do it for me in the future. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So this idea of he brings down rulers from their thrones, but he lifts up the humble. One of the greatest examples of this is a great Bible story that you find in the book of Daniel and chapter 4. In Daniel in chapter 4, here you see how God can be trusted with power. I mean, think about it. When God has power, he uses it to bring down rulers from their thrones, and he lifts up the humble. Very often we experience in this world that when the wrong people exercise power, they trample on the humble and they are lifting their thrones up. But God, his thirst for justice is seen here. He brings down rulers from their thrones, but he's going to lift up the humble. Remember, he says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Yeah, God can be trusted with power. And you're not going to see that in any better place than in Daniel chapter 4. You know, bullies, they intimidate, they dominate. Families and friends, sometimes you get a few that it seems that you always have to, acquiesce to them. Like, everybody's like, oh, you don't want to get this one upset, right? Employers, they could go on power trips, and the next thing you know, they're intimidating everybody around them. That's typically sometimes that you see in a fallen world how power is being displayed. But Jesus had all power and authority. And yet he says, a bruised reed he would not break, and a smoldering wick he would not snuff out. Two vivid pictures of something that is very vulnerable. A bruised reed, once it's bruised, then it's very fragile, could easily snap. A smoldering wick is on the verge of being snuffed out, but God says, no, not even a smoldering wick will I blow out, because God is demonstrating his power to lift us up, not to tear us down. So, having said that, I want you to look with me, if you would, to this passage in Daniel chapter 4. And we're going to look at this whole idea of what God does in bringing down the thrones of the proud, okay? So here we have Daniel, and we'll look at chapter 4. Now, as a point of context, Nebuchadnezzar is the king of Babylon. Under Nebuchadnezzar's rule, he has extended his kingdom, that it just overwhelmed Assyria, that was responsible for destroying the northern kingdom. They were allied with Egypt, and so Babylon comes and defeats Egypt as well. So they come down and they overwhelm Assyria. They overwhelm the Egyptians. They begin to just cut out for themselves this wide swath of land. And so King Nebuchadnezzar thinks he is all that right now. And this is a dream that he has, and how God is going to interact with him, because God isn't just the God of Israel. God is the God of the world. Remember, he is the creator of all things. All people are going to have to stand before him and give an account. And so Nebuchadnezzar, he's about to discover this. So let's look here. Daniel chapter 4. King Nebuchadnezzar, to the peoples, nations, and men of every language who live in all the world, may you prosper greatly. It is my pleasure to tell you about the miraculous signs and wonders that the Most High God has performed for me. How great are his signs, how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an eternal kingdom. His dominion endures from generation to generation. What is this whole change of heart about? How is it that the one who came and overtook Jerusalem, destroyed its temple, how is it now that he is lifting up his voice in praise? Well, listen to the story. He says, I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at my home in my palace, contented and prosperous. I had a dream that made me afraid. As I was lying in my bed, the images and visions that passed through my mind terrified me. Can some of you guys relate to that? Have you ever had such a troubling dream that you wake up and you're in a panic? Like you wake up and you're sweating and your heart is pounding, and you realize, like, oh my gosh, that was just a dream. But you woke up terrified. And so this is something that made the king Nebuchadnezzar, this big and powerful person here, he's afraid, he's terrified. So he says, I commanded all the wise men of Babylon be brought before me to interpret the dream for me. When the magicians, enchanters, astrologers, and diviners came, I told them the dream, but they could not interpret it for me. Isn't that interesting? So finally, Daniel came into my presence, and I told him the dream. He is called Belteshazzar, after the name of my God, and the spirit of the holy God is in him. So here Daniel comes. he was given, his name was changed. Remember? This was part of the exile. This was God taking Daniel out of Israel along with 3 of his friends. Do you remember who those 3 friends were? They were thrown into a fiery furnace. Do you remember this story? They were called Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. And those 3, along with Daniel, they played a prominent role in this book of Daniel. But Daniel comes and he's asked to give an interpretation. And verse 9, he says, I said, Belteshazzar, chief of the magicians, I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you. No mystery is too difficult for you. Here's my dream. Interpret it for me. These are the visions I saw while lying in my bed. I looked up, and there before me stood a tree in the middle of the land. Its height was enormous. The tree grew large and strong, and its top touched the sky. It was visible to the ends of the earth. Its leaves were beautiful, its fruit abundant, and on it was food for all. Under it, the beasts of the field found shelter, and the birds of the air lived in its branches. From it, every creature was fed. That doesn't sound like a frightening dream to me so far. But listen, he says, in the visions I saw while lying in my bed, I looked, and there before me was a messenger, a holy one coming down from heaven. He called in a loud voice, cut down the tree and trim off its branches. Strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the animals flee from under it and the birds from its branches. But let the stump and its roots, bound with iron and bronze, remain in the ground, in the grass of the field. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and let him live with the animals among the plants of the earth. Let his mind be changed from that of a man, and let him be given the mind of an animal, till 7 times pass for him. That 7 times may also refer to years. So, verse 17, the decision is announced by my messengers. The holy ones declare the verdict, so that the living may know that the Most High is sovereign over the kingdoms of men and gives them to anyone he wishes and sets over them the lowliest of men. So this is a dream. It's about a tree being cut down, shackled, and somehow now this root, this stump, it has transformed itself into a man. And this man now is acting as if he was one of the beasts of the field. And he's told that the decision for all this to happen came from the Holy One. And that this Most High One is sovereign over all the kingdoms of men and gives them to anyone as he wishes, setting over them the lowliest of men. He says, this is the dream that I, King Nebuchadnezzar, had. So now, Daniel, Belteshazzar, tell me what it means. For none of the wise men in my kingdom can interpret it for me, but you can, because the spirit of the holy gods is in you. Right? So he still, is, just playing whatever cards he can, right? Like whatever gods are out there, I just need you to come through. So then Daniel, called Belteshazzar, was greatly perplexed for a time, and his thoughts terrified him. So now not only is King Nebuchadnezzar terrified, but now Daniel's terrified. I wonder why he would be terrified. The king said, Belteshazzar, do not let the dream or its meaning alarm you. So Daniel, now who's he talking to? He's talking to the king, Nebuchadnezzar. At a whim, Nebuchadnezzar could have Daniel killed. If he didn't like what he, if he just crossed him the wrong way, this is the kind of power and the kind of person that Nebuchadnezzar was. And so Daniel says, my Lord, if only the dream applied to your enemies and its meaning to your adversaries. The tree you saw, which grew large and strong, with its top touching the sky, visible to the whole earth, with beautiful leaves and abundant fruit, providing food for all, giving shelter to the beasts of the field, having nesting places in its branches for the birds of the air. You, O king, are that tree. You have become great and strong. Your greatness has grown until it reaches the sky, and your dominion extends to the distant parts of the earth. Well, that doesn't sound like a scary dream. So far, if you're Nebuchadnezzar, you're probably feeling pretty good, right? I'm that big tree, except you know how this dream ends. And you can imagine now why Daniel is reluctant in telling the king the interpretation of this dream. Because while this tree has such a dominant presence, notice what he says in verse 23 now. He says, you, O king, saw a messenger, a holy one, coming down from heaven and saying, cut down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump bound with iron and bronze in the grass of the field while its roots remain in the ground. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven. Let him live like the wild animals until 7 times pass by for him. This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree the Most High has issued against my Lord the king. See, Daniel knows who he serves. King Nebuchadnezzar still refers to Daniel as, he says, the spirit of the holy ones lives in you. There aren't holy ones. There's only one Most High. And Daniel knows him. And he's telling the king, this is the decree the Most High has issued against my Lord the king. You will be driven away from people and will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like cattle and be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 times will pass for you until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over the kingdoms of men and gives them to anyone he wishes. This is a lesson in humility. This is a lesson where King Nebuchadnezzar, who thinks he's all that and a bag of chips, is about to recognize that before the Lord, he is just like a tree that is about to be taken down. No matter how big, no matter how dominant you are on the landscape, you are not too big for God to deal with. And the Most High is about to express his sovereignty over the kingdoms of men and you in particular, Nebuchadnezzar. The command to leave the stump of the tree with its roots means that your kingdom will be restored to you when you acknowledge that heaven rules. Therefore, O king, be pleased to accept my advice. Renounce your sins by doing what is right, and your wickedness by being kind to the oppressed. It may be then that your prosperity will continue. So in the midst of this judgment, there is hope. Now, think about it. If this truly happens to Nebuchadnezzar, according to this verse here in verse 27, who's going to be the recipients of his change of heart? Those whom he has oppressed. And who are those? Does it not include the very people of Israel that Nebuchadnezzar exiled from their own land? So in a way, like God dealing with King Nebuchadnezzar is also a way of perhaps answering the prayers of those people who now were taken forcibly from their land, scattered throughout the kingdom of Babylon. And instead of being the objects of derision, if the king has a change of heart, he will refrain. He will start doing what is right, and renounce his wickedness, and be kind to the oppressed. So God isn't just dealing with Nebuchadnezzar. God is also dealing with the nation of Israel. So verse 28, all this happened to King Nebuchadnezzar. 12 months later, as the king was walking on the roof of the palace of Babylon, he said, "Is not this the great Babylon I have built as the royal residence by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?" It sounds like a little full of himself, don't you think? And this is a year after. You would think that this dream would have caught his attention. But hey, remember when you're reading the Christmas Carol, and Scrooge is confronted, and he's told that he's about to be visited by these three angels, right, of Christmas past, present, and future. And while all this stuff is going on, he says, "I don't believe in you. It's just, maybe this is something I ate. It's a bad piece of beef that's caught in my stomach that is influencing my mind." Right? Yeah, Nebuchadnezzar may have dismissed the dream, but here he is now on that roof making all these boastful claims, and the words were still on his lips when a voice came down from heaven. "This is what is decreed for you, King Nebuchadnezzar. Your royal authority has been taken from you. You will be driven away from people, live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like cattle. 7 times will pass for you until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over the kingdoms of men and gives them to anyone he wishes." And immediately what had been said about Nebuchadnezzar was fulfilled. He was driven away from people, ate grass like cattle. His body was drenched with the dew of heaven until his hair grew like the feathers of an eagle and his nails like the claws of a bird. Wow. How is that for a word picture? Verse 34, he says, "At the end of the time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes towards heaven. My sanity was restored. And then I praised the Most High. I honored and glorified him who lives forever. His dominion is an eternal dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, 'What have you done?' At the same time that my sanity was restored, my honor and splendor were returned to me for the glory of my kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out. I was restored to my throne, became even greater than before. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right, and all his ways are just. And those who walk in pride, he is able to humble." Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? God takes this man who thought he was untouchable and demonstrates who it is that is truly sovereign over all things. My friends, I think that this is a little bit of what Mary is saying when God brings down rulers from their thrones and lifts up the humble. God knows how to do this because God knows how to exercise power in a way that gives life and not takes it away. Whatever your circumstances, this is a God who has not changed. His will and his purposes will never be thwarted. In closing, there's a passage in Corinthians that says, "There is nothing that has overcome you except that which is common to man." And God is faithful. He will not allow you to be tried beyond what you're able to bear. but with every trial, he will provide a way of escape. Now, we wish that God would take away the struggles. But the text is saying, God knows your frame. He's not going to try you beyond what you can bear. In other words, like I am not going to be free from the trials and struggles that are found in this world until I get to heaven. And this world will never be heaven. What I am assured of, though, is God's presence and his power, that God says that I will lift you up. And here's a story of Mary, probably in the back of her mind, remembering stories just like this one and saying, no, the Lord, the mighty God, right, is able to bring down rulers from their thrones, and he is lifting up the humble. God will do that for her. God has done that for you and me, and he will continue. My friends, he has sent his son Jesus in this season of the year to remind us again of all these good things that are yet to come. So go out, seize the day, and never forget that God is good all the time. Lord willing, I'll see you on the weekend. And if not, we'll begin our week together next week. God bless you, my friends. Seize the day.